we're joined by Chief Frank Montagne from North Hudson Regional Fire and Rescue, who is going to share with us some helpful tips we should all keep in mind as we approach the winter season. Welcome, Chief Montagne.
Good afternoon, Mabel. Thanks for having me.
This year seems to be zooming by with major holidays upon us and the cold season almost here. What should our viewers be preparing for? What's the to-do list you recommend to protect our homes and families?
I have quite a few things I'd like to speak to you about, and one of the first ones is to let them aware that 3,000 to 4,000 people die a year in fires, and also a lot of those deaths, about 500 or more, contribute to carbon monoxide. So that leads into why it's so important to have a smoke detector and carbon monoxide detectors within your house. They should be checked on a monthly basis, and you should change your batteries. What do you say, twice a year? You know, the changing of the clock is a good time to remember, or a minimum at once a year. Also, with your smoke detectors, I recommend that you have one in outside every bedroom, in a separate sleeping area, and each level in your house. And also, again, it's changing the batteries, but I also recommend that they have the newer smoke detectors out there. They're a 10-year battery life. So I would recommend getting one of these, and they have a battery that doesn't have to be changed for 10 years. Also, when you're looking at these, make sure they have the UL, the certified company that checks the smoke detectors, Underwriters Laboratory, so you know that's a certified agency that's checking them out. So the 10-year, I think, is warranted. You know, you would actually write on the back, or so you know when you installed that, so you can make sure that when the 10 years coming close, you could change it again. And they actually say it's a savings by changing batteries every year in the older smoke detectors. It's a cost savings that paying for those batteries. This would come to about the same cost. So that's peace of mind, and it's for 10 years of life. Also, if your regular smoke detectors, they start chirping, that's a warning sign. They have a low battery. You know, make sure you take it out and replace it if you have that sign.
Also, as the weather gets colder, people are going to start using space heaters. Some people enjoy candles for warmth as well as decorative purposes. What should people be mindful of?
Yeah, especially when it gets colder, your heating units are something that are very important that you should get checked by a professional. Whether you have gas, oil, hot air, there's different components that need to be checked. Make sure there's no dust, make sure they're operating properly. So I recommend that you get a professional come in and check that out. Also, if you have any chimney that deals with gas or oil, make sure that chimney is checked. Usually someone come in, they do a sweep of the chimney and clean it out. And if you're using any kind of portable devices, make sure they do have this certified label of an Underwriters Laboratory or testing agencies. And when you're using them, make sure you use the proper extension cords. Make sure they're attached to a surge protector that will protect the unit from in case there's an electrical problem. And always keep any kind of portable unit away from any combustibles, at least 3 to 4 feet away. You don't any kind of draperies or things that could ignite easily. Keep that away. Another thing that people also tend to use, and it's a big concern, are candles. A lot of people like the scent of candles, like the way they look, and that's fine. But make sure they're in a safe area. Make sure they're on a stable table. A lot of times animals could knock them off if they're not on a stable table. Also keep them away at least 3 feet from anything that could burn. And one thing very important, that when you leave the house, please put the candle out. Don't keep it lit. And also when you're lighting a candle, whether you're using matches or whatever it might be, make sure you don't use loose clothing, and keep anyone who has long hair that might get in the way where you can actually start a little fire. And most importantly, keep matches and lighters, anything that you light these candles with, away from children. Keep them in a safe place somewhere in your home.
With the holidays upon us, people are going to start decorating their homes, and that means lights, indoor, outdoor lights. What are things that people should be doing? Is there guidance that you can offer?
Sure. I mean, holiday seasons, it's always festal. People like to have a lot of decorations, and I think that's very nice. But make sure you use, again, the proper extension cords, especially outdoors. Let's start with outdoors and we'll go in. Make sure the extension cords are rated for an exterior with water and snow. Again, they're certified by proper testing agents. For example, going back to Underwriters Laboratory. Make sure they're on a surge protector. That's very important. That's your protection for in case you have a short or something in the lights. And anytime you're using lighting or any type of decoration, make sure you check all the lights. Go through every light, plug it in ahead of time, check the whole unit, make sure there's no frays, no burnt out lights, or any of the wires might be damaged. Make sure that's checked. And then when you go in the house, basically the same thing. Check all your lights, make sure they're operating fine, there's no shorts, have them protected through a surge protector. Also with Christmas trees, whether it's artificial or real trees, if it's a real tree, make sure usually the places where you buy the tree usually cuts a fresh cut, make sure that's done properly. And the same thing is keep all the lights, there's a lot of different kind of lights now, the LED lights, they're cool to the touch versus the older bulbs, which can actually get very hot. So there's some recommendations I feel would be helpful in preventing and having a safe holiday season.
Are there particular situations that tend to come up during the holidays? Like I'm thinking uh, people are doing a lot of baking, whether it's desserts or turkeys, hams. Are there things that come up that people should be thinking about and take certain precautions?
That's a great question, Mabel. And I have some recommendations. For example, if they're going to do a lot of baking, whether it's Thanksgiving, it's a long, several hours of cooking, make sure, again, like your heating appliance for your heat, make sure your cooking appliance is cleaned out. Make sure there's no grease, whether you can clean it, some commercial cleaners you can use, or if you have a self-cleaning oven, make sure that's done first. Check the whole unit, making sure it's clear. You want to prevent any potential fires. Also, when you're cooking, I'll have to run out and get something to the store. You don't leave your oven cooking when no one's home. Just like a candle, you don't want to leave that home. That's what we want to prevent potential problems of fires. Also, when cooking, making sure the children stay away from the cooking area. Also, if you're boiling water, make sure the pot handles are turned in. The children have to be coming by. They can go up and maybe potentially grab it by accident. So turn those handles in. Make sure the oven's clean. Make sure the top of the stove, everything's clean and ready to go. Also, people like to deep fry turkeys. That's something that people like to do. So if you're going to do that, make sure the turkey's thawed out completely and make sure it's dry. And if you do the deep frying, make sure it's outside, at least 15 to 20 feet from the house. Not only the house, but keep it away from trees or bushes that could ignite and transmit to the house. Keep that away. Make sure it's on a stable surface. Absolutely keep children and animals away from that, a good 15, 20 feet away. That is a very hot liquid that could scald and severely injure someone. So that is some of the things I would think are very successful. Also, if you make sure your smoke detectors are working and properly placed, and also have a fire extinguisher. The recommended extinguisher, you can go to any kind of major hardware store, and it's a 2A 10BC. That's the standard for residential. But you can also, I'd recommend talk to your local fire department, local fire official to say what is exactly want, and always have them stand by close to where you're cooking, and that would be a nice way if you did have a fire. And if you do have a fire or anything did have a flare up, make sure you have anything on the top of the stove, oil. You can cover it with a pan top. Make sure you try to snuff it out, shut the fire off, and if you feel it's getting out of control, leave the house and call 911. That's the safest thing you do.
That's a perfect segue. I was going to say off camera, we were talking about evacuation plans. I know that's talked about quite a bit when it comes to students, but I don't know that families really have one in place. And what should that entail?
Right. That's great. Good way to lead into that. A lot of us are home today. Children being homeschooled, due to the virus that's been happening over the last 6-8 months. So there's an acronym called EDITH, which stands for Exit Drill in the Home. It's an escape plan of the house, right? So every family would hopefully sit down, sit at the table, and have an escape plan in case you had a fire. So what you want to do, you want to make sure that if you have a fire in your house, you must leave the house, right? And make sure you have a designated place, whether it's out in the front lawn, near a tree, maybe on a neighbor's property, safe away from the house. Have a designated area. So when you do have a fire, everyone has to get out. We want to make sure everyone's out of the house. By everyone meeting in one place, you'll know, everyone got out safely. Also, you have to teach your family and children, make sure we have multiple ways of getting out of the house. For example, the front door may not always be accessible. Say the fire happens somewhere in the living room that's blocking the front entrance. So make sure we know how to get out of the side exits. Can they get out of windows? Do they have emergency escape ladders to get out of a window if you have to? So these are some of the things you want to prepare. And talk to your family, your children about what to do and when to do it. And once you get out of the house, call 911. Teach your children how to use a phone on a cell phone. The 9 and the 1 is on the bottom right and the top left. Teach them how to, even in the smoke, how to dial 911. It's something sounds simple, but it's a good thing to practice. And then if you ever did get affected by fire, children, adults, if your clothes catch fire, learn to, they say, stop, drop, and roll. So you don't want to run because that'll flame the fire. Stop, roll on the grass, on the floor, and try to snuff out the fire. So these are some life-saving tips and things that you should practice. And that exit drill in the home is very important. Everyone should sit down, draw it out, talk about it, get everyone's input. So the more everyone's involved in it, the more they're going to be able to understand it and work with it. I think that would be very helpful, successful for safe holiday season for most families.
Chief Montagne, thank you so much for such valuable information, and you are a wonderful resource. Thank you so much for your time.
Okay. And also, if anybody wants a resource, other information, you go to the National Fire Academy, you go online and research that, or the New Jersey Division of Fire Safety. There's some great additional tips that you could print out for yourself and your family and go over. So if you want to Google that, that's another great resource. So.
Well, I hope that you and your family are safe and healthy this holiday season.
Mabel, thanks for the opportunity, and hopefully your viewers have a safe holiday.
Thank you, sir.